The rain had not stopped for 3 days, and the cobblestone streets of Lost Heaven glistened under the dim yellow glow of street lamps. Midnight carried a heavy silence, broken only by the rumble of a car engine crawling slowly along the avenue. Inside the vehicle, Tommy Angelo gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, his eyes flicking nervously to the rearview mirror. The city had a way of swallowing men whole, and tonight he was certain it was trying to take him too. The passenger beside him, a man named Paulie, lit a cigarette and leaned back as if the danger outside didn't exist. Smoke curled lazily around his face, his lips forming a crooked grin. "Relax, Tommy. You drive like the cops already got their eyes on us. You keep sweating like that, you'll drown yourself before they catch us." Tommy said nothing, his jaw set, the wheel trembling faintly under his hands. He had been a cab driver not long ago, ferrying drunks and businessmen through these same rain-slick streets. But fate had thrown him into a darker world, one ruled by men like Don Salieri, where loyalty was rewarded with money and betrayal with bullets. From the back seat, Sam chuckled. "Paulie's right, you're too wound up. Tonight's nothing more than a pickup. In, out, done. No heat, no problems." Tommy shot him a look through the mirror. "That's what you said last time. We barely made it out of Chinatown alive." Sam shrugged. "That's the business, kid. You'll learn." The car slowed near the waterfront, where warehouses loomed like sleeping giants against the night sky. The smell of saltwater and oil mixed with the dampness in the air. A deal was waiting inside, crates of liquor smuggled in from overseas, guarded by men who were supposed to be friends, but trust was a fragile thing in Lost Heaven. Paulie flicked his cigarette out the window, sparks scattering into the darkness. "All right, boys. Let's get this done." They stepped into the rain, the sound of their shoes echoing on the wet concrete. Tommy pulled his coat tighter around him, shivering less from the cold and more from the unease gnawing in his stomach. He was still new to this life, still figuring out the rules of survival. But something about tonight felt wrong. The warehouse door creaked open, and a tall man in a fedora beckoned them inside. Shadows stretched across the floor, broken by the faint light of hanging lamps. Crates were stacked high, the smell of wood and alcohol filling the air. Men with hard eyes stood around, their hands never straying too far from their jackets. "Evening, fellas," the tall man said, his voice smooth but sharp at the edges. "You're late." Paulie smirked. "Traffic. You know how it is. Let's not waste more time." As the men moved toward the crates, Tommy hung back, his senses on edge. His eyes scanned the room, catching the subtle shift of weight in one of the guards, the way another tapped his finger against his thigh like a man about to make a move. He swallowed hard. Something was off. The tall man clapped his hands. "All right, gentlemen. Before we move the goods, let's settle accounts." Paulie reached into his coat for the envelope, but the moment his hand moved, the tension snapped. Guns appeared like magic, barrels gleaming under the weak light. "Drop it," one of the guards barked. "Nobody moves." Tommy froze, his heart pounding in his ears. Paulie cursed under his breath, his hand raised slowly. Sam's face tightened, his usual smirk gone. The tall man stepped forward, his grin sharp as a knife. "Salieri thinks he can muscle in on our territory, does he? You boys should have stayed in your cab, Tommy Angelo." The sound of his name was like ice down his spine. He hadn't told this man who he was. Which meant someone had. Betrayal. The word roared in his mind like thunder. In that instant, chaos erupted. Paulie shoved the envelope into the guard's chest and dove for cover. Gunfire shattered the silence, bullets sparking off metal and tearing through crates. Tommy ducked behind a stack, his breath ragged, ears ringing from the blasts. Wood splintered inches from his head as he fumbled for his pistol, the cold steel slick in his trembling hand. "Tommy!" Paulie shouted from across the room. "Move!" Tommy forced himself to act, sprinting low between crates as gunfire chased him. He slid behind another stack where Sam was returning fire, his jaw clenched in grim determination. "We're boxed in," Sam growled. "They knew we were coming." "No kidding," Tommy muttered, peering around the crate. A guard charged their way, shotgun raised. Instinct took over. Tommy fired twice, the recoil jolting through his arms. The man crumpled, the shotgun clattering to the floor. Tommy's stomach twisted, but there was no time to dwell on it. Paulie's voice cut through the gunfire. "Back door. We make for the back." The three men moved as one, covering each other with bursts of fire as they pushed toward the exit. Bullets whistled past, smashing glass and chewing through wood. Tommy's chest burned, every breath a struggle, but adrenaline carried him forward. They burst into the night, the rain washing over them like a baptism of survival. Tommy staggered, the weight of what he'd done pressing down on him, but there was no chance to stop. Engines roared nearby, more men, more trouble. Polly pointed toward the car. Drive. Tommy slid behind the wheel, his hands slick on the leather. The engine growled to life, tires screeching as they tore down the wet streets. Headlights flared in the mirror, black cars giving chase, their shapes monstrous against the darkness. Sam leaned out the window, firing at the pursuers. Muzzle flashes lit the rain, but the enemy cars stayed close, bullets smashing into the rear bumper. Tommy weaved through alleys, tires spitting water, his nerves stretched to breaking. Polly laughed wildly, as if the chaos were a game. "That's it, Tommy. Show him what a cabbie can do." But Tommy wasn't laughing. His knuckles were white, his eyes locked on the road ahead. Every turn was a gamble, every breath a reminder that death was just a heartbeat away. The chase raged through the city, across bridges slick with rain, past factories that belched smoke into the night sky. Finally, in a desperate move, Tommy swerved down a narrow alley, scraping metal against brick, sparks flying. The pursuing cars overshot the turn, their tires screeching as they tried to recover. Tommy gunned the engine, bursting out onto another street and disappearing into the maze of lost heaven. Only when the headlights behind them faded did he ease off the gas, his chest heaving. Silence filled the car, broken only by the pounding rain. Polly wiped his brow, grinning. "Well, kid, looks like you're one of us now." Tommy didn't answer. His hands trembled on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the endless road ahead. He knew there was no turning back. Tonight, he had crossed the line, and the old country's shadows had claimed him.